thank you for being here.
It's better.
My name is Hans Allhoff. I'm the chair of Altadena Heritage. So early this morning at Loma Alta Gym at the Parks program, my good friend Mark Mariscal took his shirt off in front of hundreds of adoring Altadenans. And in that moment, Mark, you inspired me to dress for the occasion. So in honor of our last Altadena Revealed lecture, in honor of a talk that I gave about the outlaws of Altadena, and in honor of one of those outlaws, I am going to take off my unincorporated coffee hat. And I'm going to sit before you with my Max Hardcore cowboy hat on to get this night going. Thanks for being here, everyone. So first and foremost, a little bit of gratitude to go around the room. Can we please thank the library for everything they've done to host us through this series? And then I also want to thank all of the folks who have contributed to this lecture series. So beginning with, and unfortunately she's not here, but Bridget Lawler from Pasadena Heritage. If we could acknowledge Bridget, please. Alex and Cynthia from the Foothill Catalog. Our wonderful friends from the Bungalow Heaven Neighborhood Association. Including Tina, who has made this night work every single time. Thank you, Tina. And then Veronica Jones from the Altadena Historical Society, whose grandchildren are visiting from Maryland, so welcome to them, please. So I want to say a couple of things about how this series has gone and a couple of things about what are ahead, or what is ahead for the series. The premise of this series was always very simple. It was this. It was detached from the politics of fire recovery, detached from the trauma of that recovery, come together, tell stories, and let's just fall a little bit deeper in love with Altadena. And we really, really hope that we've met that expectation on your end, and thank you for being a part of this. And looking forward into the next year, we will keep this going. We've got some great ideas teed up. I want to tell you about some of them. We obviously will have to find a new venue, and we will, and it will be beautiful. A lot of good ideas. So there is the story of the Alice Blackburn House, which was moved from Hollywood to Los Feliz and is now on East Poppy Fields in Altadena. That's a potential talk. We've got to get someone in here to talk about the artists of Altadena, the rich artistic legacy of this community. Essential as well, something on the scientists of Altadena. For those who saw my talk, I did my best to walk you through Richard Feynman's study of the female form. Someone else is going to have to walk you through quantum electrodynamics, so we want to do that for you. Zane Grey. Any Zane Grey fans in the room? We'd love to get a talk on Zane Grey. We would love to do an interview, a one-on-one interview with an Altadena writer. That's something we're excited about. And then last, and we're already into the middle of next year, a deep dive into Altadena's origins as a wellness community with Hygeia up in Alpine Villa, one of the major reasons people came to this community. So that is what's ahead. As for tonight, Christmas Tree Lane. We are celebrating tonight an essential piece of Altadena history and Altadena present with Christmas Tree Lane. We're also celebrating an essential Altadenan in Mary Landau, our speaker. And one of the things that's really, really touching about tonight is that this is a family affair. Many of Mary's family members are here. We're so delighted to have them. And I'm very, very touched to introduce Mary, her daughter Carol. So Carol, come on up. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, good. It is my absolute joy and honor to present my mom to you. She graduated from Cal State LA in 1972 with a BA in early childhood education. She was a teacher with the Glendale Unified School District for 32 years. She was involved with the California Foundation for Agriculture in the classroom for 30 of those years. She joined the Los Angeles County Beekeepers Association in the late 1990s and is currently the co-education chair. She was a co-leader of several Girl Scout troops in Altadena for 14 years, and that is the reason why I am a Gold-Door Girl Scout. My mom is the second of 6 children and is the only girl. She developed a love of history from her mom, as well as a love of agriculture from her dad. It is important to her to learn about the world, especially details that are often overlooked. For example, did you know that goats can climb trees? And all of the worker bees are female. She has lived in Altadena for the past 42 years and has raised 3 children, all of whom take part in tonight's presentation. I hope you enjoy it.
So I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm Mary Landau, and that was my lovely daughter, Carol. And you'll get to hear from my sons and one of my son's girlfriends, so look forward to that. I want to preface this by saying tonight has some really exciting parts to it that I didn't even know we would have for sure. So it's going to be fun. And then the other thing is, Altadena is always a place where people have strong feelings, strong opinions, and they're not afraid to speak them. And that is partly, you can see that through the presentation because I bring several of the items up that I found while doing research for it. I joined the board of Christmas Tree Lane about 15 years ago. I retired from teaching in 2017 and have spent much of my time working with the Altadena Historical Society. I had so much fun learning some of the things that I'm going to tell you tonight. It's just a great place, and I'm so thankful that it was spared from the fire. And I also want to tell you the beginning of Christmas Tree Lane predates the naming of Altadena. This presentation would not have been possible without the help of the Altadena Historical Society. Most of the photos presented here came from the archives. Their helpful staff, especially Jean Phillips, guided me to what they had and how to go about finding more information. The entities named on this slide were essential in my research and have contributed to the images that you see here. Without them and without the technical help of Catherine Cadogan, this presentation would have been impossible. Thanks to them all. Before there was an Altadena, there were poppy fields and scrub brush. Trees were few and far between. That all changed with the coming of the Woodbury brothers. This is Fred Woodbury's house, built in 1882. Captain Fred, a banker, a Civil War veteran, an investor, and an agriculturalist is on the left. And John, the banker, traveler, and investor, is on the right. Notice the white extension to the left of the house. That is where the deodar's seeds were germinated and nursed. It has been said that John Woodbury saw a stand of deodars while traveling in Italy, and he was so taken by their beauty that he wrote to Captain Fred, his brother, and suggested that they would be beautiful trees that might line one of their streets in their investment in California. Captain Fred contacted the USDA in Washington, D.C. to ask if the deodars would grow well in our climate. The answer was yes. The seeds were ordered, and they arrived in 1883 for springtime planting in cold frames. The man in the lower right-hand corner was Thomas Hogue, and he was the foreman at the Woodbury Ranch. Please note that in this photo, there are weeds and there are small bushes, but no trees. They were planted soon after. The house was an exact duplicate of their family home in Marshalltown, Iowa. The Iowa home was demolished years ago, but fortunately the Altadena one still stands and didn't burn in the Eaton fire. You may have noticed that I said both brothers were bankers, and that's the truth. In fact, I learned from Captain Woodbury's great-great-grandson, who just happens to be sitting here, that when he brought a lot of historical archives from his family to give to our historical archives, I learned about his, I guess, would it be your great-great-aunt or your great-aunt? The Frances? Great-aunt. Frances wanted to set the story straight, because you often see the signs that say, John Woodbury, responsible for planting the trees. Well, that's just not so. It really was Captain Fred. So she had a whole list of things, and unfortunately my list burned up. But the original that he gave us is still in the archives. And I think you would find it a lot of fun if you explored them. I wanted to introduce you tonight to Dr. Sterling. I just called him Warren. Sometimes he calls me and says, hi, this is Fred. And I say, oh, I thought you were dead. And he said, yeah, because he pretends that he is his great-great-grandfather. But he's got something very special to tell you about. And if you ever have a chance to find out more about the Woodbury brothers, he's the man. He's the one that you should call to speak about that. But if you can come up now, you have maybe a couple things to say and then something to present.
It's always risky to introduce somebody else. You never know how long they're going to stay up here. Yes, I'm the great-great-grandson of Captain Fred. I never met him. He died the year my father was born. But we always heard about him. My mother was a Woodbury, and so Woodbury was kind of always part of our family lore. Earlier relatives did go to the house, for picnics and that sort of thing. So that was nice. Number of articles and bits from the house and from the Woodburys were still in our family. And I did tell Mary I had one little item I wanted to pass along to her and the Historic Society. It's just a few teaspoons. They're kind of beat up now, but I'm pretty sure that they appeared at tea parties up in the Woodbury Mansion. So I'm passing them to Mary and the Historic Society so that my kids don't throw them in the dumpster.
Special, you want to tell them the word it says?
Oh, well, the name Woodbury is on the handles, so that kind of authenticates their genuine nature. And, Fred, now see, I know you didn't know this was going to take this long. Fred is reported after the trees were planted and they're starting to grow, and he was out on his front porch one time having a lemonade or something stronger. And he said, someday I think people are really going to enjoy these trees. They're going to be a thing of beauty, and they're going to bring enjoyment to some people in this area. And of course, when he said that, that's what this area looked like. There wasn't very much besides sagebrush. And I think he would be entertained and amused to see how big a deal the trees have become. Here we all are tonight at the library. There's an association for the trees. They get lit up every year. That was all after he took his finger off the button. But I'm pretty sure he would be happy to know that all of us, all of you, that we're all enjoying what he put in the ground so many years ago. So we can be thankful that the trees survived. and that they're still standing. And I'm pretty sure Fred would be wishing a Merry Christmas to all of you.
So that's really special, because how many times do you get to hear from a great-great-grandson of someone famous? The trees were planted, watered, and well cared for over the many years, and continue to grow in beauty. Many people love to walk near them and take buggy rides down the dirt road that was Santa Rosa. The lady that's standing in the picture on the right had turned 21. She had remembered the trees as little sprouts when she was a little girl. I think they were probably at least 10 years old when she was here. But I wanted to tell you, notice that how much more grown up the deodars are on the right than the ones on the left. I think they're at least 10 years apart. So that's my observation as a plant person. Uphill races. Among the reasons that Altadena was known nationwide were the uphill races from 1906 to 1909. The cars that were built then would really travel well on a flat surface, but sometimes they stopped working going uphill. Well, that needed to be remedied, because if you lived in Altadena and you had a car, you want to be able to get home at night. Anyway, what they decided to do is test their cars. So it turns out that Santa Rosa is the very best street to test the cars in the whole San Gabriel Valley. The first uphill race was in 1906, Washington's birthday. That's when Washington's birthday was on Washington's birthday, and everybody had a day off. So Santa Rosa was very dusty and dirty. The mile-long race started on the corner of Dearborn and Los Robles. There were two sharp turns on Woodbury that made it very dangerous. The first turn was about 45 degrees, and the second, which put the car onto Santa Rosa, was about 70 degrees. After some improvements were made, such as spraying the dirt with oil to reduce dust, as well as straightening out the road and elongating it down past Woodbury, the race drew even more crowds. The 1909 uphill race was the most famous and last of its kind. Race drivers such as Barney Oldfield, who's pictured here, and car manufacturers such as Henry Ford, who is not pictured here, were in attendance. To time the race, a man sat up on the utility pole as seen in the photo on the right. He tapped on the telegraph key when a car began the race. Another man at the end of the race tapped the telegraph key when the car crossed the finish line. In that way, the races were very accurately timed. There was one more obstacle that needed to be remedied. And this was a problem with the streetcar tracks on Mariposa. The tracks caused cars to become airborne as they sped up over the hill. And when they landed, parts would fly off. Well, there were people who wanted to collect souvenirs, so they used to assemble just above this intersection so they could dash out and pick up those pieces for a souvenir. Stripping or removing non-essential parts from the car to reduce weight and allow faster times was allowed in this free-for-all race. Barney Oldfield drove the Stearns automobile, coming in second, even though Miss Ives in her book about Altadena history says he won, but he didn't. He was second to the Apperson Jackrabbit. I think it just says Apperson up here. After the races were over, the year for 1910 was scheduled, but it was postponed twice because there were other more important races, and then it was totally taken away because, after all, cars could now go uphill better. The neighborhood around the deodars attracted some very wealthy citizens, mainly from Chicago. Fortunately, they all loved the deodars, so the trees were well cared for by members of the neighborhood. Alas, our beautiful house. The McNally house. Mr. Andrew McNally visited the area and thought it a wonderful place for his winter home. The lot he had purchased was the southeast corner bordering the deodars on the lane. He built his house in 1887. Mr. McNally was thrilled at how well plants of all types grew. He kept his groundskeeper very busy planting new plants and taking out less successful ones. It's my understanding that Mr. McNally also somehow reserved the other 3 corner lots for friends from Chicago. Colonel G.G. Green very soon built his home to the west of Andrew McNally's. They were good friends in Chicago, and they decided to be neighbors here in Altadena. Colonel Green, a real colonel in the New Jersey National Guard, who became wealthy by selling medicinal remedies, a little bit better than snake oil, built this beautiful home on the site that now is the current Altadena Main Library. Just think, if we had a time machine to transport us back to 1890, we would be sitting in his house right now. His youngest daughter, seen in the photo on the lower left, was named Altadena Green, after his love for this town. I have been wondering if the new 501c3 named Altadena Green knows about Colonel Green's daughter of the same name. Both Andrew McNally and the Colonel Green had their own splendid rail cars to travel in style back and forth from Chicago and all around the United States by railroad. These photos are of Colonel Green's private car, which he named Altadena. And with it, he took travelers from his hotel, the Castle Green on Raymond in Pasadena, up to the Mount Lowell Railway. The photo on the right shows us how comfortable traveling by rail could be. This is the house that Bayard Smith had built in 1887. It was owned by Joseph Medill when it burned to the ground in 1894. In its less than 8 years of existence, it became the place where the founding of the first meeting of the Valley Hunt Club was held. It is of note that 13 of the 24 founding members were women, which was quite unusual for the time. The photo of the group shows some of the members at a meeting. I think it was a spiritual meeting, don't you? This club later went on to found the Rose Parade. Kate Crane Gartz was the best friend of Andrew McNally's daughter, Helen. Kate and her husband, Adolph, came to Altadena a few years after the tragic deaths of their 2 young daughters in the 1903 Iroquois theater disaster in Chicago. That fire is the reason why you see exit signs and push bars so that you can get out, because it was quite a tragic fire. And that was the reason why the Woodworth home was built to be fireproof. They built their home north of Colonel Green's residence. Their lot was the one originally reserved for John Woodbury's never-built mansion. The property extended from Mariposa to Altadena Drive. They built a beautiful home which they called the Cloister. Kate was a leader of the socialist movement and a generous philanthropist. She was one of the founders of Pasadena Playhouse. Did you know that? And also the American Civil Liberties Union, to mention just a couple of her organizations. Kate's husband was active in the Altadena Improvement Association and saw to it that Santa Rosa got paved and graded and paved while he was the Secretary-Treasurer. He was president and general manager of the Rubio Canyon Land and Water Association when he passed away in 1930. He was buried in the Crane family plot in Wisconsin. Kate continued her work in Altadena to make life better for all people. Kate passed away in 1949. She must have chosen to remain in Altadena rather than be taken to Wisconsin and buried in the family plot next to her husband. She and her daughter Gloria are entombed in the Mountain View Mausoleum. Both of these pictures are pictures of her clubhouse, which is south of her beautiful home. But let me tell you about her beautiful home first. Kate held famous gatherings in her home. Notables such as Albert Einstein, Upton Sinclair, Elaine Bernstall, King Gillette, and Charlie Chaplin were regulars at her Sunday afternoon salons. She also held weekly meetings in her clubhouse south of the home, shown in these pictures. The community, anybody from the community was invited to be a member of those and other circles around that she was in. It was a chance to talk about how to improve life for everybody. On the south third of the property, she made a beautiful garden with trees. And she really wanted to donate the whole thing to the County of Los Angeles, but they said no, because she wanted to make sure they took care of her trees. So the first two parts of her lot were subdivided, but Kate's daughter was able to keep that part, and it was later to become the Girl Scout camp, Camp Mariposa. Next to, sitting at the table in a long white dress is Kate. Next to her in a polka dot dress is Nanny McNally Neff, one of the Andrew McNally's daughters and the mother of noted architect Wallace Neff, who designed many buildings in Southern California, including St. Elizabeth's of Hungary here in Altadena. This is Gloria Cottage. It was named after Gloria, her youngest daughter, and was located on the grounds at Montecedro. The cottage was a gift to the Scripps Home for the Aged from the Gartz family. When I moved to Altadena in 1976, I thought that I would eventually like to live out my days at the Scripps Home. Alas, that was made impossible when the Scripps Home was demolished to make way for Montecedro. Unfortunately, Gloria Cottage burned in the Eaton fire. Before the first lighting of the lane in 1920 came World War I, followed by the Spanish flu. A very sad time that you can all remember because that's very much like our COVID-19 pandemic. As early as 1910, people were wishing that there was, they were wishing that what was then thought impossible would come to pass. Wouldn't it be grand to have Christmas lights in the deodars of Santa Rosa? But that would take a miracle. A senior pastor of Pasadena Presbyterian Church in the 1910s was one of those who talked about it. One of the members of the church Fred Nash may have heard him. I wonder if he was thinking to himself, I could make that happen. Fred Nash was the son of one of the Nash brothers who founded the first general store in Pasadena. He later bought the store from them and changed the name to FC Nash and Company. Through Fred's leadership, the store became very popular. Fred was civic-minded and wanted to help build up Pasadena's good reputation. He was one of the founding members of the Kiwanis Club of Pasadena in 1920, and they needed a worthy project to start the good works that Kiwanians are famous for. Fred Nash convinced them that, with their help, lighting the lane would be possible. And remember, this is Altadena. It took a great deal of organization, permission gathering, and planning in order to do that. There was already a controversy over whether or not to put lights in the trees because some people said it's going to destroy the limbs. It'll make it bad. It's so beautiful. Don't do it. And other people said, well, maybe we'll break a few, but wouldn't it be gorgeous? So they took a vote, and the vote was granted to the lighters. Many church choirs from all over greater Los Angeles were invited. Many different bands were also invited. 1,000 chairs were rented for the invited singers. Extra streetcars were ordered to transport many of the 5,000 people who attended. Lights for the trees had to be rented at the cost of $2,300, and a vast number of volunteers and groups had to be organized. The men from the Kiwanis Club provided the transportation for the orphans, and the women's group were asked to watch over them while the men did other things that they had to get done. Candy canes were to be given out as presents to the orphans. Only 1/3 of the lane was lit that first year. The underdeveloped corner of Calaveras and Santa Rosa was used to set up the stage, bandstand, and a screen to project the words of carols for the sing-along. The event started at 7:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I have not yet found a photo of that event. This is the closest I have to a photo of what the lane looked like that evening. The event went very well and was very inspirational for all that attended. There just happened to be a full moon that night to add to the entrancing sight. After the event, many of the crowd walked down the lane in silence and wonder. Their dream had come true. What a beautiful event. It brought great joy to those who were able to see it. I'm going to ask my son Daniel to come up because he's going to read from an eyewitness account. That night was a big hit, and it was decided that the lane should be lit every night from 5 to 9 p.m. until New Year's night, so that others could experience the joy and ponder its beauty. Daniel is going to read the takeaway. William H. Reeves was quoted as saying, and he was the city commissioner. And now, Daniel, your turn.
The scene of illumination on Santa Rosa Avenue on Christmas night was indescribably entrancing. I have yet to hear of a visitor who did not go away enthusiastically praising the superb spectacle. The sight is nothing less than an inspiration. A neighbor who had objected to the idea visited my home late Christmas night, stating that she could not rest that night until she had come over to tell us that she thought it the most wonderful sight she had ever beheld. What a great thing it is to get out of the rut for once in our lives in order to do a thing which has never been done before. To Fred C. Nash, who dreamed the dream, and to the willing workers who wrought it, that's W-R-O-U-G-H-T, wrought it so beautifully into vision for us, our gratitude is due. A thing of beauty is a joy forever.
Thank you. Can you imagine what caused William Reeves to actually write those words? I've never even heard some of those words used in English in the past 20 or 30 years, but I thought it was wonderful. Within that first week, it was decided that the lane should be lit in the following years as well. Some of the attendees began thinking of how to make it even more beautiful. One of those was Victor Falconeau of Falconeau Building Company in Chicago. He was the man who built Gary, Indiana at the behest of the U.S. Steel Company. After he retired, he and his wife decided to live in Altadena. This is the house where Victor Falconeau and his wife bought. Mr. Falconeau, entranced by the lights of the trees of the lane, decided to design a set of stars to tie them together, which he did in his backyard. We have not as yet found any photos of Victor's creations, so what they look like still remains a mystery. I personally think that they may have been the six-pointed stars of David. Bethlehem is the town of David, and it seems logical that Victor would use that, but that's just my assumption. These are not the only gifts that he gave to Altadena. He also gave himself, his expertise, and time to make necessary improvements. One of the most important improvements that he worked on was to light some of the main streets in Altadena. The streets were very dark, and many mishaps occurred in the dark of night. This photo is the closest that I could find to what Mr. Falconeau found for Altadena streets when he searched the United States for the best available streetlights. The story of how the streetlights came to be is very interesting. After they were installed, Mr. Falconeau used to make sure that they were all lit. He took that job very seriously. One night, he came upon a group gathered under one of the new lights. Angry words were being spoken by members of the group. Mr. Falconeau inquired about what was being discussed. He was told that none of those who was gathered wanted those lights. One of the members said to him, if we wanted Altadena to have streetlights, we would have lived in Pasadena. They wanted to keep it natural, which is naturally something we want, but we do need to be safe. So he decided to mosey on, and I'm pretty sure that they did not know that he was the reason why they had the lights. But within a week, the newspapers reported that not one penny less than $1 million had been added to the value of Altadena property due to the new lights. No other unpleasant words were spoken about the matter. Nightingale the Mystifier. Frank Nightingale, a native of Deerfield, New York, became fascinated with magic at an early age, and I'm talking maybe 3, 4, or 5 years old. At 16, he became a professional magician and joined a troupe of vaudeville actors and traveled the world for several years. Unfortunately, the troupe disbanded while he was in China. He was able to get a job with General Electric there and was later transferred to New York and then Los Angeles. He built a home nestled in the side of the mountain in Altadena and named it Palawu, meaning bird's nest. I have an aside for that too. It says in the history books that it was a Native American, but my son David looked up a word that sounded awfully like that, and I think that he in his travels through India probably picked that word up there, but that's just me. So he created this 35-foot tall, 5-pointed star that shone above Christmas Tree Lane. It was the first creation of its type, and he gave it as a present to the world. Later, he became the father of outdoor lighting, another wonderful story for another time. These photos show the two different stars. The one on the left is the star that I believe Falconeau designed for placement between the rows of deodars. The photo on the right shows a star of Palau, developed by Nightingale on the hilltop above his home. The star in recent years has been called the Star of Hope by many who found hope in seeing it lit by Dr. Elkin every night for almost 2 years during the COVID-19 pandemic. This past Thanksgiving, it was lit again so that those who saw it would be reminded to give thanks. Of course, it was lit for the last year's lane lighting, and it is my hope that it will shine again post-Eaton fire. Many traditions were started in 1920. Orphans were brought to the ceremony. They were given candy canes, as I said, and toys by Santa. On other evenings, they were taken for a joyous ride down the lane in a stake truck by Kiwanians and given noisemakers to make a joyful noise while doing so. There were almost always groups of singers at each year's lighting events. More than 100,000 people per year were counted going down the lane in cars. The residents of the lane loved this event so much that they pooled their money and bought the land at the north side of the intersection of Woodbury and Santa Rosa. They created a small park and even put a plaque there for all to see. More cars came every year. More trees were lit every few years. And more community involvement helped raise the spirits of the residents of Altadena. Some notable firsts were started because of the popularity of the lane. This is one of my favorite pictures. Remember, this is before plastic. For the 20th anniversary of airmail, Altadena's Chamber of Commerce sent a starlet from the movie Men with Wings, dressed in a cellophane jacket, to deliver a baby deodar to California Senator McAdoo in Washington, D.C. The mystery is, was it planted? Did it grow? Is it still alive? The lady in the hat and print dress was the postmaster in Altadena then. The man in the picture in the right, just to the right of her, with his hat in his hand, was Cecil Bryant, the visionary and founder of the Mountain View Mausoleum. The starlet with the tree was taken to Alhambra Airport by escort, put on a Flying Jenny, Airmail's first plane, and flown to Glendale's Grand Central Airport. There she boarded one of the new airplanes used for airmail and was flown to Washington, D.C. to deliver the tree. The first ever nationally broadcast radio program of the event, as it was happening, was a ride down the lane. It lasted no more than 15 minutes, but you can tell by this advertisement, the ride down the lane was repeated anew for several more years. The first broadcast was in 1937. I think that the two letters in the next slide may have been about having Mary Pickford be on the 1940 broadcast, but that's just my thought from reading Mr. Curley's letter. And now, sit back and pretend that you're hearing the words that Mr. Curley, Secretary of the Altadena Chamber of Commerce, and Mary Pickford, internationally famous Hollywood star, wrote to one another regarding the location of Christmas Tree Lane. My son David will read Mr. Curley's letter.
Thanks. Hello, this is my face. Dear Miss Pickford, one of the unpleasant tasks a Chamber of Commerce secretary has to do is to reprimand nice people like Mary Pickford. My reason for this reprimand, which we hope will not offend you, is because I understand the other day at the Biltmore Bowl, in talking to a group of women from the Los Angeles Chamber, you referred to Christmas Tree Lane as being in Pasadena. Christmas Tree Lane, Miss Pickford, is in Altadena, which is an entirely separate community. I'm sure that if our 57-year-old deodars could hear, they would have been horribly shocked. So remember, Christmas Tree Lane is in Altadena's even though Pasadena lights it for us. We do hope that it will be possible for you to participate in the broadcast from the lane on Christmas Eve. It will be indeed a great pleasure to have you in Altadena. Sincerely yours.
Thank you, David. And now Molly for...
My dear Mr. Purley, humbly do I apologize to Altadena, but most particularly to the noble deodars, for my mistake in referring to Christmas Tree Lane as being in Pasadena instead of Altadena. And thank you, Mr. Purley, for putting me right. Of course the deodars heard me, but I am sure those symbols of light and Christmas joy will forgive me, for after all, they know that during the lovesome season, there are no boundary lines. With every good wish for the holiday season, I am sincerely yours, Mary Pickford.
So, as you can see, it's important to know your facts. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, Mary Pickford was the first female Grand Marshal of the Rose Parade in 1933. Just so you know, she beat Shirley Temple. It rarely snowed in Altadena. The long song written especially for Christmas Tree Lane called A Long Christmas Tree Lane was written in 1947. It told about no snow on the trees because it didn't snow here often. This being Altadena, the largest snow in memory happened the following winter. It actually snowed all the way into Los Angeles and covered the roofs there with 2 inches of snow. I know this because that was the year my family moved to Southern California. We visited my grandparents at their little home in Los Angeles on Michael Turina Street and saw the snow. Now, I wasn't even 1 year old, so I don't really remember, but I just wanted you to know. It was so beautiful and amazing to have this much snow on the trees that you will see many photos from this time. Please notice that the branches of the deodars touched the street. Nowadays they don't. That is because they were trimmed high enough for modern utility trucks to pass under. Here is a fact that I learned. Unlike our local pine trees, deodar cedars don't regrow branches. So once trimmed, they will stay trimmed. If you have a deodar of your own, please think carefully before having its limbs cut back. Many tree services don't seem to consider the permanence of limb removal of deodars. Here is a photo from the lane taken sometime in 1950, in the 50s. Can you see the lights outside to the right of the couple on the right? People would drive with their headlights on sometimes. Reminders were given at the top of the lane to turn off your lights. When you reached the end, there were reminders to turn them on again. When I first was at Altadena for this event, I remember the Boy Scouts who used to build campfires on the cross streets and to keep warm as they guided the traffic along. The tree lights actually are much better and more beautiful to see without headlights. And we used to turn on the amber lights that were called running lights. Well, unfortunately, cars are made now so you can't even turn off your own headlights. And so cars do that themselves, and it's really hard to be behind somebody who's got their lights on and they can't turn it off. But that's the way it is. There's Fred Nash. Remember, he's the one that started this whole thing. The Arthur Noble Civic Award was first bestowed in 1924. This plaque hangs on the wall of the City Council chamber of Pasadena City Hall. The award was given out each year for notable service, promoting the beauty and general welfare of Pasadena. Nash received it in 1954. I'm not sure, but maybe in part it was for lighting the lane. He did so many other things as well. And as you can tell from the Pickford letter and Pearlie letter, Pasadena really did foot the bill for lighting the trees until after Pasadena's attempted annexation of Altadena was voted down, Pasadena withdrew its financial support of the lake. Once again, Mr. Nash was asked to organize an Altadena group to take over the lighting. He and the others started the Christmas Tree Lane Association in 1957. Because of the work of the association, the lighting of the trees has continued. Many of the residents and friends of the association work tirelessly to ensure that the lane lighting continues to the present time. Rosa Johnson was one of those people. Rosa Johnson loved Altadena. She and her husband were often referred to as Mr. and Mrs. Altadena. The letters in her hands were from some of the many foreign exchange students that they hosted over the years. While looking through the archives, I found a photo of her putting lights in one of the trees with some of those students. She loved the lighting ceremony so much that every year she would lead the singing of jingle bells and help Santa pass out candy canes. In the late 60s, she was instrumental in fundraising, which included a September carnival at Farnsworth Park called the Candy Cane Carnival. During one of the small lighting ceremonies of the 80s, which was attended by less than 100 community members, she turned to Santa and said, "Santa, you and I belong here. You're Santa and I'm Rosa. Here we are on Santa Rosa." Altadena Heritage, especially member Timothy Gregor, not McGregor. I keep thinking of the bunny story. Worked very hard to have Christmas Tree Lane be designated as a California historical landmark and be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. All of their hard work came to fruition in 1990 when Christmas Tree Lane achieved that recognition. It is my understanding that this was the first time a living historical monument was put on the registry. I wonder if there are any others at this time. One of the surprises for tonight is we're going to have a poem read by Susan Hubert.
Good evening, hi. I was born and raised in Altadena on Alameda Street, 700 East Alameda. Christmas Tree Lane was my playground, along with Mary Ray, who is a poet, a writer here, sitting here this evening. We grew up together, played in the lane, and the property that my father purchased at 700 East Alameda was the garden of Dorothea Hoagland Hayden, who was a poet in Altadena. And in the early 1923, I found a book of her poetry, sent away for it. It's kind of falling apart. It's signed by her, the author, 1923. And I thought it was most appropriate when I opened it up yesterday and found the poem that reads, "The Story of the Deodars." The deodars on Santa Rosa are hung at the Christmas season with many colored electric lights. These wonderful trees were grown from seeds brought from India. In the land they are called God trees, in this Christmas trees. And so the poem begins. "We came from the Himalayas with their peaks of eternal snow, from the land of great beginnings where the Ganges waters flow. We have seen there feast and famine, seen pestilence blight the land, and the brown children of India die like the mites of the sand. We have seen the simoon wither and scorch the land like a flame, till the black earth seemed to shrivel and to cower as if in shame. And then the rains have fallen, the blessed waters of God, and a carpet of marvelous color has hidden the black burned sod. But always there was beauty, on which the eye might feast, and mystery and longing in this wonderful land of the East. Always the snow-capped mountains piercing the azure sky, and always the sacred river and the temples it flows by. Always a voice was calling from minaret high in air, calling a mystic people to meditation and prayer. Then came we across the ocean, brown seeds in a dark brown cone, and we reached the western borderland where the bright Pacific shone. And deep in the soft earth buried, at the foot of the fair Mount Low, that we might rise to stately trees, we rested and learned to grow. Still nights and stars and bird calls all made us long for home, and we sighed for the snow-capped mountains piercing the sky's blue dome. We grew in the warm, soft sunlight, sunlight ever the same, we who were called the God trees in the land from whence we came. Then came to us marvelous stories of centuries long gone by, when wise men trekked the desert to follow a star in the sky. A star that led to a manger where a little child was born, with a sky full of angels singing glad praises one fair morn. And someone named us Christ trees in this land of heart's desire, and every year at Christmas time, our branches blaze with fire. Fire of the opal and emerald, amethyst, tourmaline blue, like gifts the wise men carried to the little Christ child new. No longer a shadow of longing for the peaks of eternal snow, no longer a harking backward where the Ganges waters flow. We have heard the voice of angels singing a glad new song, and gone is the homesick yearning, all feeling of strangers gone. Our branches sing of the Christ child as we point the way he trod, and strike deep root in this glad new world as we watch the stars with God. And that's deodar, open. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to have special treats like that all of a sudden pop up. That was beautiful. Okay, for the last slide now. Yes, December 6th is coming. I hope that you will join us this year for the 105th anniversary of the lighting of Christmas Tree Lane. The Winter Arts and Crafts Festival starts at 3 p.m. in the parking lot of the library. Community groups will be in front of the library on Mariposa, also at 3. The ceremony will begin at 6 p.m. The lights should go on at 6:30. We expect many thousands of people to be in attendance. Please come early so that you can get a good parking place. They're hard to find. Be sure to make time to do some Christmas shopping while looking around and find out more of what Altadena groups have to offer you. The main stage from 3:30 to 5:30, various groups will entertain you. The Disney Imagineers, 20 of whom lost their homes to the Eden fire, will be joining us to lift our spirits. You can help them assemble festive boxes of food for our hungry community members. Donate a toy to the Altadena Sheriff's Toy Drive. They're bringing 1,000. that is Disney. But they're encouraging others too, so that there's a lot of things that they're doing for us. We hope to see you all on the 6th on the lane. We hope that you come in the joy that has been Christmas Tree Lane and the love of Altadena that we all have. And Merry Christmas to you all and Happy Holidays. I don't know if you have questions, but I thought I'd open it to questions. I do want to do a disclaimer. When I was doing research in the archives, I found several different answers for each one of the questions. And so this is, to the best of my ability, what's happening with, I'm presenting you what I found to be most logical. So there may be discrepancies here, but just remember that's Altadena. Anybody else? Did you want to come up?
One question over here.
Question, yes.
The slide that you showed of Green's mansion, which was on the site of the library, in the foreground you can see the carriage house, which still stands and is a private house.
Yes, it is still there, and that's because it's made of stone.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that we have that.
I'm definitely not a fountain of knowledge about this Altadena history stuff because I lived in Pasadena. But when Fred, I can call him Fred, had got the tree started, apparently some died, and he went down to a nursery in Los Angeles on the old buckboard to pick up more tree deodars, apparently they had. And on his way home, he stopped off, and I think it was at his pal Green's house, but somewhere in Pasadena, he stopped off for a glass of lemonade again, and if it was Green, made a comment about the trees, how cool they looked, and he gave him 2 of them. And as I understand it, one was planted there and another somewhere still in Pasadena, but not too far away, and they thrived and survived. I'm not sure today if they're still alive, but for many years you could still see 2 orphan deodars somewhere down in Pasadena because Fred gave the gift of these 2 to his buddy.
Thank you. That brings up one more point. We know so little about our plants. Deodars can live to be 1,000 years old in a native habitat, but it usually is cut short. It's so well was because, those ditches on either side. Well, that was caused by a storm that just had rain poured down. So before the trees were planted on the lane, that area had been taken a beating, so to say, and then they put in the rocks, and then they put the trees in, and I think that they had a better chance for life that way. Thank you so much. One question?
We have a deodar pine which is over 100 feet in our front yard.
It's a cedar, not a pine.
Excuse me, you're correct. And I had heard that deodars are resistant to fire. Is that true?
Okay, it is my understanding that they are fire resistant, and the reason why we have some of our homes still standing on the bottom of the lane is because they caught the embers and did not burn, and the houses did not burn. So there is a resistance there. As you can tell when you looked around, some of them did burn. So I guess it depends. But there's a lot of things that we need to really understand about the trees, and I just love them. By the way, firefighters say that they're better trees than pine trees, and now that I'm living in Monrovia, I have to agree. Anybody else? Yes.
There was a question about the Altadena Tournament of Roses, when it existed and how long it existed. I know that in 1966 it did, and Rosa Johnson was a part of that. And Feynman and Gerard Zorthi were judges for the court, of which I was a part of, and I was able to ride down the lane in a car with Rosa and the princesses, and we rode down Christmas Tree.
Yeah, that is so wonderful. I think that was before my time, but it's very exciting. So there's just so much rich history in Altadena that so many people don't know. I mean, we used to have an airstrip here called Cecil B. DeMille's Airstrip Number 3 by the Country Club.
Does anyone know about the tournament? If it's
Does anybody
how
know
long it
about the
existed, or-
tournament of roses by Altadena? Because also you can shine in pride by knowing that the first queen of the Rose Parade was from Altadena.
And we had a float as well.
We used to have floats, and I think Zorthian used to design them. So there's a lot of wonderful history. I hope that you avail yourself of. Thank you.